Hi everyone, I'm so excited that you're with us today because I'm here with Ashu Desai, the co-founder of Make School. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Sure.
Let's dive in because, like I said, I'm going to become a brand ambassador for you guys that really believe what you're working on. Tell us about Make School and how you're changing education.
Sure. So at Make School, we're building a university replacement for computer science. The reason we're doing this is for a few different reasons. The first is that most of our friends who are here in Silicon Valley don't feel like they learn very much practical from their computer science degrees for what they're doing for work. The second reason is a lot of our friends who are founders and developers are having a lot of trouble hiring good talent. And it seems that colleges are not really preparing students with the skills they need for the workforce. A bit about my personal background. When I was in high school, I built my first iPhone app and it sold 50,000 copies. And this for me was by far the most exciting educational experience I had because I was working on my own original project, and because of that I cared a lot more about everything I had to learn in order to build and ship that. And once I did finally ship that, I had people from all around the world write reviews about that this was their favorite game they'd ever played, and that to me was the most fulfilling experience you can possibly have. And it also opened up doors for me. I got a lot of internship and job opportunities, even though I was only in high school, because I was able to show off, hey, I was able to create this app and build this, and they were able to look at that and say, oh, it seems like you'd be able to build an app for us. And so it was by far the best, both in terms of exciting and inspiring educational experience for me, helped me realize that computer science was this amazingly creative field. It's not just a hard algorithmic field, it's about taking an idea and using computer science to bring it to life and get it out there to real people. And it set me up for my career. And so when I got to college, I was not very happy with the education I was getting there. What I wanted to be doing was building and shipping real products and thinking about starting a startup. And there was not a very good educational ecosystem around that in traditional universities. And so we ended up leaving. I ended up leaving school, met up with my co-founder, Jeremy, who also had a similar background, was building apps while he was at MIT. And we decided to start a company to help teach high school and college students how to build and ship real-world products.
And so how does it actually work? You guys have your first founding class right now.
Yeah. So the vision of what Make School will be is it's a 2-year program. It'll have 8 months of learning, followed by a 6-month internship, followed by another 8 months of learning. Students will cover computer science theory, app development, web development. They'll cover a lot of entrepreneurship and business. They'll cover soft skills like pitching, networking, storytelling. And it's much more structured. Like a day in the life at Make School is much more like you're working at a company rather than sitting in a classroom. And so you'll come in, you'll have some project that you're working on that day or that week. Some of the projects are custom projects that we've created to help teach certain principles in computer science theory. Some are projects that help you understand how computer science can be applied to different fields. So one of the projects, there's a YC company called Transcriptic, which is AWS for life sciences. So we're going to have a project where students will be able to sit behind their computers and be able to do things like sequencing genomes or folding proteins just by writing code, which is pretty neat. But then the bulk of the time, students will be working on their own original ideas. So for the app development portion and the web development portion, they'll brainstorm whatever ideas they might have to solve problems that they personally have or their friends around them have, and then actually build software to try to solve those problems. And I think for me, that's sort of what the core of what Make School can empower students to do is that while they're learning, they can still build products that will have impact on people's lives around them.
So what you're lending to goes back to a previous quote that you had in an interview where you said, it's really about equipping students with the idea that they can build things. And it reminded me of a Steve Jobs quote when he realized that the world was defined and built by people who were no smarter than him. So he thought, hey, I can do the same thing. What's the importance of that experience learning and letting someone run with an idea?
Yeah, so actually my best classes that I took in high school were exactly like this, where the teacher would let us pick whatever idea we wanted in either computer science or engineering and just let us build that. And I think you also think about how companies today are really changing the way they view workers. So there's a lot of research that's been done on what motivates people, and there's 3 core things that drive people. The first is having a sense of purpose. The second is having a sense of mastery, so you're getting better at what you're doing. And the last is having a sense of autonomy, so being in control and you are in charge of your own projects. So companies have now moved away from this model where the boss is micromanaging and the boss is telling people exactly what they need to do. Instead, they allow employees to be more autonomous. They allow them to bite off a project on their own. And then the employees care a lot more. They're a lot more motivated and driven to work on what they're doing. And so really we just want to bring those same principles to education and say, hey, if we really empower students to build things that they care about and work on things they're passionate about, we don't have to worry about motivating them because they'll motivate themselves. And so we're really then just saying, hey, how do we empower the students enough and then how do we get out of their way enough to allow them to build these really cool things? And I think for me, the idea of building a product, taking something from an idea all the way out and into a real world experience that other people can have, for me, that is the core foundation that we should be teaching young people. And for me, if you would think like college is supposed to instill in you some foundation of knowledge that will then serve you as you grow for the rest of your life. And for me, it's less about having domain-specific expertise because if you decided that you wanted to start a biology company in the future, I think you can go out and get that domain-specific expertise if you want. For me, it's more of the process of how do I take something that's an idea and knock down whatever barriers in my way and teach myself how to learn these new skills that I need in order to get to this finished product. And make sure that there's nothing is going to prevent me, and I will never take no for an answer, and I will keep fighting until I figure out some way to bring my idea into reality. For me, that's sort of the foundational knowledge that we want to teach all of our students. And then whatever problem they might want to solve in the future, they'll then have had that experience of how do I go from taking this idea that solves a need into actually building something that will address this need.
One of the most crucial parts for your program, too, is allowing them to build something within the Make School environment. So there's tons of mentorship. They can get help whenever they need it. And then 8 months in, you say, hey, you're going to go get an internship at a tech company.
Yeah.
Why is that internship in between so important?
Yeah, so there's a few colleges that do this right now. University of Waterloo is a good example. They have a co-op program. And what it really does is it helps students understand more about what the real world is like. And it's much easier for you to focus on what the right things you need to do and learn in school are if you have an understanding of what the working world is like. And so I think it's really, it gives perspective to the students of you're training for these 2 years for jumping into a career in technology. And if you don't know what that career in technology looks like, you've never had a window into it, then it's really hard for you to understand which parts of your education you should be focusing on. And so for us, it's a critical piece where it really gives you a window into what these companies are looking for and what workers in the real world, what skills they're required to have.
And part of the internship is that students at Make School don't pay anything, right? You pay it back after. Tell us more about that, because that's huge.
Yeah, so the idea behind this is that there's two core reasons we did this. One is that we want to make sure that Make School is accessible to everyone. So having heavy upfront tuition is very difficult. A lot of students who are applying to Make School could not go to college anymore because they couldn't afford it. And it essentially serves as a barrier to entry and a barrier towards upward mobility if only the wealthy are able to afford the education that's supposed to set the tone for the rest of your life. So we didn't want to have upfront tuition. Instead, the way the tuition model works is that students will pay us their 6-month internship earnings and 25% of the first 2 years' salary. And the second thing that this really does is that it creates a feedback loop where if our bottom line is getting hurt as a business and we're not making enough money, the only thing that we can do to make more money, we can't hike up tuition rates. The only thing we can do is say, let's provide a better quality education and provide better outcomes to our students. And if we're able to provide better outcomes to our students, only then will our bottom line and our revenues start increasing. So if you're a traditional university today and you're saying, hey, we're entering a lot of debt, our finances are not working out, your answer to that problem, which every university is doing right now, is hiking up tuition rates, which is sort of going against, it's not like they're providing a better value product to the students, they're just increasing tuition. And so what we're saying is that by using this model, we're sort of held accountable for our outcomes. If we're providing poor outcomes, we're not going to be making money as a company, and we will have to change something in order to make that, in order to fix that.
One of the ways that you guys are doing that is moving beyond just the hackathon. Like you said, you guys were doing the summer and still do the summer programs, but it wasn't enough to get me ready for a job at Snapchat.
Yeah.
So you guys are integrating classes on pitching and writing and theory. Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, so I'll sort of take them on different points. So on the theory side, really there's a lot of algorithmic thinking that is very important in terms of solving problems. And a lot of that is understanding how to reframe problems, look at them from different lights, and find more clean and elegant solutions to them. When you're writing code for a big company, a lot of what happens is that when you have a big product, there's a lot of work that needs to be put in order to build all the features and in order to make it super functional. And if you have a way that, if your mind is good at taking a big problem and breaking it down into smaller modular pieces, or looking at it from a different angle and writing a more efficient algorithm to do that, you can solve a lot of problems sort of on level 2 or level 3 of coding. So it's not necessarily the first version of the product that a company like Snapchat builds. It's fairly simple to create. You don't need to have a lot of depth to that. But when you start to think about how do we make this product more scalable, how do we make it more maintainable, and make it easier for more and more people to work on the same code base, a lot of those underlying CS theory principles suddenly do become very relevant. So that's sort of where the theory comes in. And then in terms of the pitching and the writing, so this is where even as a computer scientist, a lot of what you do is dealing with other people. Even though when you write code every day, it's primarily instructions for a computer to read, and you're primarily communicating with a computer. At the same time, if there's more than one person working on this code base, it's suddenly you are communicating with other humans, because the code that you write needs to be easily legible by other people. The comments that you write need to be understandable by other people. And generally, when you're working with a team, you're doing a lot of emails, you're doing a lot of Slack, you're talking to people in person, you're running meetings. And if you're not able to communicate your ideas very effectively, then it's very difficult for you to work together as a team. And so even as a programmer, about 50%, or we believe about 50% of what you'll be doing is going to be a surrounding communication, the way you present yourself, the way you pitch yourself. And because of that, it's a very critical skill. And I actually think good, concise writing and concise coding are actually, there's a lot of overlap there. There's sort of similar principles. And I think sort of in terms of if I have an idea where I think this is the right way for us to do something, and I want to explain that to you and other people on my team, I think it's not very different than doing proofs or taking a big algorithm and explaining step by step to my peers how this works. And so I think these two things, people often see them as very different, the hardcore technical thing and the social skills, but I think they're much more blended than most people realize. And I think especially if an engineer wants to end up becoming a founder in the future, all of what they'll be doing is storytelling. They'll be pitching to press, they'll be pitching to investors, they'll be pitching to people who they want to join the company. And so it's very important skills.
One of the ways they can directly put that into action if they do want to become a founder is the 2-month capstone project at the end of the program. So they have an option to work on starting a startup or to really get into a topic, right? Like artificial intelligence. So you haven't had anyone do it yet, but can you give us a glimpse of what that would be like?
Yeah, so the idea here is really allowing students to customize their educational experience. And we'll have some subset of our students that want to become founders one day. We'll have some subset that want to go deep into some other topic. And we want to give students enough, control over their own education to be able to focus on what they want to do. And really that period is we've taught them sort of the core fundamentals that we think they need to know. And then from there, we want them to be able to experiment and have this time. It's very rare that you actually get time in 2 months to actually do really whatever it is that you want to do and work on something truly passionately. Going through high school, going through college, and then once you get into a job, you're always constantly working towards something. You always have other stresses and other things that you need to be thinking about and worrying about. So this 2-month capstone project really lets you focus on anything that you care about, go really deep into it, and not have to worry about having to meet deadlines or having to study for tests or so on and so forth. And again, it really gives students more flexibility over their education and learn whatever they might want to learn.
It's hugely flexible too, and the 2 of the apps that I'm most excited about that a couple of students in your founding class are building. The first one is Danny's building an app for journalists to catalog their interviews.
Yep.
I don't know, are you able to say anything about that? Because that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, so Donnie's app is basically a recording app. It's called Stamp Notes, and you can basically put stamps inside the recording. So as it's recording, you just press a button, and it'll basically flag where that timestamp will take place. And so you can in your notes write, stamp number 2 is when I asked Ashu about this topic, and then it's very easy for you to jump back into stamp number 2. Let me hear what he had to say about that, so I can take down my notes. So that was definitely pretty
gold.
Cool.
That is awesome. And another one I was really excited about is Harlan is creating an app to help transgender, intersex, and gender nonconforming individuals find safe restrooms. How's that going for him?
So that's actually been phenomenal. He's been featured in the Huffington Post and BuzzFeed and a lot of other actually international publications, which is pretty great. For me, this is like really, really shows off the essence of Make School, because this app is not going to be the next billion-dollar company, but what it does is it solves a really strong need that an underserved community had. And for me, it's amazing to think that our students, while they're learning, are able to create something that will make a difference in the world. That to me is really the essence of Make School. It's about thinking about what problems exist in your life or for communities that people around you care about. Every app you create does not have to be a billion-dollar company. It doesn't even have to be a startup. In Harlan's case, it's an open source project that he built the app for a broader open source project called Refuge Restrooms. But it's really, really amazing that he was able to have so much impact and get this app downloaded by thousands of people all around the world because it solves a core need that they have.
It brings me back to something you've said previously, that coding is a creative pursuit. Mm-hmm. And when I first read that, I was like, like how is it creative? Because I've always, like you've said, imagined it as you sitting in front of a computer and talking to the computer, no one else. Tell me how it can be so creative.
Yeah, so when I was starting out and when I was young, computer science wasn't the only thing that I was interested in. For me, it was more about building products and building experiences to share with others. Now, what's really unique about computer science is that for you to build a desk, you need wood, you need saws, you need resources, right? For you to build software, you don't need any of that. You just need a computer and you need your imagination. You're much more unlimited. You don't have the restrictions of the physical world, and you really just need this one device. And everything else is like completely up to you. You don't need anything else to create this. And so you're much less limited by what you can create. And you can think of whatever you want to do, whatever you want to build, whatever problem you want to solve, and there is some way that you can create software to solve that problem. And so it's just easier to create software to solve problems than anything else. And because of that, you have whatever idea, which software you want to do, it's easy for you to build. And so it's computer science is a means to an end. It's a really simple set of tools for you to be able to go out and solve problems. And that's what I think is so unique about it. And I think, unfortunately, when people are taught computer science in high school or college, they start with algorithms. They start with all these base building blocks, which, as I mentioned, I do believe those building blocks are important. But what you should first do is show people that computer science is a creative pursuit. Prove to people that you can use this as a tool to bring an idea into reality. And then once they realize that this is such an amazing and powerful thing that can really help you solve problems that you see in the world, then they're much more willing to say, okay, now in order for me to build this thing, I need to learn the fundamental algorithms. I need to learn the fundamental CS theory behind it. And they're much more engaged. There's purpose behind what they're learning.
One of the great quotes you've shared about coding is you said, while you're coding, your brain is in a constant swing of emotions, a continuous cycle of frustration followed by gratification, lows followed by highs. That does not sound good. So when you're working with someone who, I know one of your youngest summer students was 14, right?
Yeah.
When you're working with a 14-year-old who is experimenting with this, they have great success in the beginning, so they're on a high. Then they have a major bug, and it just kind of crushes them a little. How do you help them work through that?
Yeah.
How do you help them?
That's where sort of the teachers are really important. And for us, teachers are less about being lecturers. They're more about being mentors and coaches. And one of the reasons why I'm not as sort of believing in online education is that in online education, you can definitely have content be really good and delivery of that content be very good. But when a student gets stuck and frustrated, it's not just that they're not understanding the material, it's also that there's suddenly a lot of chemicals that are running around in their brain and emotional reactions that are being created that make them even more frustrated. And the second they get more frustrated, they're even less likely to understand whatever material you present them, and so on and so forth. And so really that's where having a very strong peer network, where it's a very collaborative network, where students are not necessarily working against each other, and when the students are working on their own original projects, it becomes a lot less competitive. If everyone was working on the same assignment and the top people on that assignment would get the same grades and people who do worse in the assignment would get worse grades, there suddenly is this competitive atmosphere that's created. But when everyone's working on their own original project, I think your project is really cool, so I want to help you bring that to reality. So I'm willing to help you with those bugs, with whatever you have. And so the peer group is definitely a big thing where the more supportive that community is, the better it is. And the second thing is that the teachers are, again, there as mentors and coaches and really also as friends. And when a student feels stuck and feels frustrated, they're willing to go to their teacher and say, hey, I need help with this. Can you help me get around this bug? And if the teachers are able to explain it in a nice way that allows the student to sort of discover that solution for themselves, they feel safe. So even though they feel stuck, they feel safe that they're in an environment that will help them get unstuck.
How many students do you guys have right now for Make School?
So for we have the two different programs. For the Summer Academy, this past summer we had 120 students, and this coming summer we're shooting to have north of 200 students. And for the college replacement program, we had 11 students in our pilot class, and those students are all off at internships right now at companies like Snapchat, Pandora, Edmodo, and other cool tech companies. And then starting in September, we're shooting to have about 50 students in that 2-year college replacement.
That's great. And so what are you looking for in those applicants? Because I'm sure you're getting a lot of applications now.
Yeah. So for the summer program, what we're looking for is students who have done about a year's worth of programming before, either self-taught or taking a class in school. And we're looking for people who have a passion for building things and creating things. So they don't necessarily have to have created software before, but if they've worked on building engineering projects or building other sorts of projects, or they really seem like they're driven, they're ambitious, they like to have ideas and bring them to life through whatever medium, we like to see that. And then for the 2-year program, we're looking for a little bit more experience with computer science. So if students don't have as much experience with computer science and they're applying to the 2-year program, we might send them to the summer program to have them pick up some more experience and allow us to be able to work with them more. So a lot of our students have already shipped, or for the 2-year program next year, a lot of the students have already internet tech companies before. They've already shipped products before, so it tends to be a more advanced group of programmers. And we're also looking for sort of personal characteristics that would allow them to fit into a good community. I think that's one of the things is in terms of sort of open-mindedness, in terms of being willing to accept that it's not necessarily where you are as a person, but where you're going as a person, and being willing to change strong, I guess, beliefs that you've held because you've been presented with new information that's made you want to change those beliefs and become a better person in the future. I think there's sort of some of these sort of soft characteristics that we also look for and we also ask questions about in the application.
Yeah, so I know that's actually what I was going to ask you next, because that's one of your interview question is, when was the time that you changed a behavior to improve yourself? So I want to ask you that, Ashu. When did you do that to improve yourself?
I think actually earlier this year there was a big a moment where I did that. I think there was at about a year and a half ago, I wasn't having the best relationship with my mom for various reasons, and I think it was, in many ways, I wanted her to have a certain relationship with me without me wanting to change my expectations of what that relationship would be. And it was I sort of wasn't as open to thinking about or empathizing with her perspective of things. And there was actually someone that I met about January or February of last year who really helped change my perspective and helped me realize that my responsibility was not necessarily to change my mom to become who I want to be. It was more to be able to change myself, to be able to provide my mom with the things that she needs to see from me, right? She needs to see that I love her. She needs to see that I'm going to be there for her no matter what, and she wants to feel a part of my life. And so even though that was very different than what I was trying to do before, I then sort of changed my entire behavior to focus on what I could provide to my mom through whether it's digital communication or when I saw her, to help her feel more comfortable and help her feel more loved and show more affection towards her. So I think that definitely was, for me, the big moment. That's
great. I really admire you for sharing that. One of the things you've discussed previously is when you run a startup, sometimes it gets hard. So it's sort of on the lines with the relationship with your mom. It becomes really hard to do anything but your startup, especially when you're your own boss, because you kind of go to bed at, like, if you're thinking of going out, you're also thinking, oh, that product that I want to ship can be shipped tonight if I skip out on dinner. Yeah. How do you find the balance?
So I have kind of a weird way of dealing with this. I think we currently have a house where about a third of the Make School employees all live together. So for me, I'm again a bit weird in the sense that being social is much more about spending time with quality people. It matters less about what we're talking about. And because I end up spending time a lot with people outside of work, whether I live with them or just work with them, that to me still feels like fun. So me getting dinner with a couple of the make schoolers feels like my social life, and so I'm very happy to just be social around that. And at that point, you get this sort of blend of we're sitting at dinner, but then we're still discussing cool ideas about make school and the future of that. I think it's really, really important just to make sure that you surround yourself with a team of people that you would be willing to spend time with, even if you didn't work towards. And I'm a strong believer in the adage, you're an average of your 5 best friends. And so picking people carefully to invite to join Make School who are people that I think I can learn a lot from and I think can really help my personal development because of the way they are and what they can teach me, I think is a really key element. And because of that, it doesn't feel like work when I'm going out on a Friday night with people who are Make Schoolers and hanging out with them. So
I love it. So I want to shift gears for a couple of minutes and talk about the business side of Make
Sure.
School, because getting into YC is what really cemented your decision to leave school.
Yeah.
And you guys had a great experience there, and I love how you went with the idea of, hey, let's start this thing, Make Games with us, and now
Yes.
that's turned into Make School in, I think, 3 years, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's a damn good story. So tell me about that and getting into YC and what the experience was like.
Yeah, so when we were applying to YC, our main goal was to say, hey, let's build something to teach high school and college students how to build real products. And the first iteration of that was this summer program that started with 30 students, high school students in our living room, all learning to build iPhone games. And so that's what the Make Games with Us was. And the YC experience was really phenomenal for us. Me and Jeremy were both coming right out of college. We hadn't even finished college. And so we didn't know very much about startups. We had grown up around Silicon Valley, so it definitely helped to have an environment where we had at least been a little bit in the know about these things. But it definitely was, we had no idea like how to incorporate properly and how to like what kind of lawyers we would need or what kind of or what stock option plans were and so on and so forth. And having that YC experience really helped give us a lot of that background knowledge of how startups work and how to sort of go about doing that. And I think stronger than just that background knowledge, the YC community was really phenomenal, where suddenly in the past, a lot of entrepreneurs have sort of had this like, I'm on my own, it's me against the world mentality. But YC really provided that community where there were a lot of other people, many of whom who had already done successful startups before, like Justin Can, who's the founder of Twitch, happened to also be in our YC batch with his next startup. And it was really cool to have these mentors of people who had done it before, people who were older than us. And for me, YC was the first time I stepped into a room where a majority of the people were smarter than me. And that was the coolest learning environment I could possibly be in. And so it really not only taught us sort of the core foundation of what startups are about, and I highly recommend YC to anyone who hasn't done a startup before, and it also provided us with this amazing community of other startup founders who we've done cool deals with. We're now inviting them to come hire our students we have a lot of YC companies like Hipmunk and Teespring and Tilt, who are all partners at Make School to hire our students. And yeah, so there have been just so many benefits that we've had from the program. The partners have been phenomenal. They've really helped us out a lot. And obviously having a YC brand to some degree acts as a credential in Silicon Valley, where being a YC founder definitely helps legitimize what you're working on.
So were you in the same class as Evan and Walker for Teespring?
No, we weren't.
No, that's really cool. I've had Evan on the show. He's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you talk about these lessons in particular, I know YC is known for their mentors too.
Yeah.
Who are some mentors that really stand out to you from your time there and who you've maintained a relationship with?
Yeah, so we ended up being like very social in our YC batch, and it's kind of funny because like when you're like everyone who's an entrepreneur is the kind of person who's going to take advantage of as many opportunities as they can. So they're the kind of people where when they go see a really famous person talk, they'll sit in the front of the room and go talk to them afterwards. Now, what ends up being kind of funny at YC is that when you have everyone sort of is of that type, right? Everyone is sort of a very sort of outgoing and I guess actionable person. And yet, when you get to YC, there are still some people who don't show up to the dinners and sit in the back of the class and sort of don't really take advantage. There it is. I mean, it's quite funny. Well, you just can't. Not everyone can sit in the front when they're talking to people, right?
Get up early and get there.
Exactly. And so what we ended up doing a very good job of is making sure we show up to every event, making sure we network a lot with the partners. We continue to have YC like Tuesday dinners, even after like 6 months after YC ended. We consistently had our batch continue to meet up, and like we're super actively social in that regard, and really took advantage of that network. Because of that, we ended up being very close friends with a lot of the partners. So PG was one of the people who liked us. So one of the reasons why PG liked our idea a lot was he thought there was a lot of wasted talent in these high school and college students who are sitting there and not building cool products. And so he really liked that idea. And so he sort of helped us out a lot. Sam Altman, who's now sort of the president of YC, also definitely took an interest in us. And at one point, he was renting a room from our house in Palo Alto as a crash pad, which was kind of cool. And then Harj and Gary.
Not a bad roommate.
Yeah, not a bad roommate. And then Harj and Gary were also very helpful. And Alexis Ohanian, who is founder of Reddit and is now back as the chairman of Reddit. Alexis is like one of the most value-add investors ever. He has so many investments in so many different companies, and yet he's still like so able to help each and every one of them out so much. And so definitely a great people to have on board. And really all of the partners at YC, they're just really very good people, and really like the no asshole policy has run true. They like really care about
asshole policy.
Yeah, for when they're
interviewing. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That is great. That's like my mom's life motto. I love that. When you were going to bring on partners for Make School, was it difficult to get them, or was everyone pretty on board for this?
So there's sort of two, it ends up being like two different groups. Like the bigger companies are a little tougher because they may already have their sort of hiring processes and protocols set up. And really, when we bring on partners as well, like we're asking them to allow us to publicly call them a partner. And so sometimes the bigger companies aren't as willing to affiliate their name with a smaller company. So we have a lot of big companies that we can't name. They'll show up to our events and still interested in hiring our students, but won't be sort of official partners. But definitely with and Teespring, for example, I met Evan at a hackathon, and they came to check out our demo day and saw all the products that the students had built from the founding class. And he got so excited about what they were building and so on and so forth. He was like, yeah, let's work together. Let's get this done. And so it's really just people who have enough visibility into Make School and are able to come to an event or meet us in person. They seem to be pretty willing to support this kind of education. But it's sort of the challenge is just getting that face-to-face time with them in the first place. And obviously, people at a lot of these companies are very busy, and especially at the higher levels, the executives and the founders end up being very busy. And so it's really just how do we show them through whatever channels, through hackathons or through the events that we throw, that Make School is a very cool place that they want to support. But I think moving forward, like the quality of the students has also been really great. When we've been able to send out the profiles of all the students and the products that they built, that's by far the biggest thing that piques the interest of companies. And at the end of the day, like that's the product that we're selling to the companies are the students. And as long as the quality of the students is high and the quality of their work is high, then the partners will come.
So how does that feel to you when you're getting up one morning and you get a text from one of your students saying, hey, just got an internship at Snapchat, or someone after who's saying, hey, I read that one of your students either finished your summer program, something like that, and then started working at Vessel, right?
Yeah.
How did you feel when you learned that?
It's definitely like it's definitely pretty amazing. Yeah.
Is that like just the moment when you're like, we're doing it?
Generally, I just like give my co-founder a big hug.
Oh, I love that. Hugging is definitely the way to celebrate.
Yeah. I think there's still a long way to go, but it's definitely been nice to have some really, really great outcomes so far. And again, it's like it's more the students really than it has been us, but it's been definitely very. It helps validate and helps us believe in what we're doing more, because there is some like, hey, there's companies actually do care about people who are getting alternative education, and it's not just necessarily the degree that's helping. It's if you teach people the right things and you teach people the right skills, and they'll go out and be successful. So
what are you guys working on right now? Because you don't have students at Make School, right? Because they're interning.
Yeah. So there's a few different things. We're revamping sort of the online courses on our website to make sure that they're ready. So the online course on our website, both we have a lot of them free online, as well as they serve as a backbone for the in-person courses. So for the Summer Academy, all the students will go through this digital dashboard where they'll be able to read all the tutorials and then also get help from instructors. They can add themselves to a help queue, so instructors will come in and support them. So we're building a lot of tech around that. We're also working on more curriculum for the 2-year program, refining that, improving that, as well as iterating the Summer Academy curriculum as well. Doing some marketing and events. So we're throwing our own hackathon on Sunday at the Computer History Museum, which will be really exciting. There should be about 300 high school and college students there, all sort of pushing forward and working on projects that they've been working on, which is definitely exciting. And so definitely a lot of hackathons. We go and send a lot of our founding class students also go and mentor at a lot of these high school hackathons, which is pretty great. it's been really amazing how willing our students are to go out and mentor and sort of pay it forward. They seem to have so much fun, just like they're so satisfied when they get to help other people with their problems. And they all know, so they could just got started programming a few years ago, and being able to help people who are now starting out definitely helps. It also helps them learn or understand the technologies more and understand programming concepts more if they're able to then go and teach that out. So yeah, a bit of that, and then a lot of my day-to-day these days is also we're looking for new office space to become the new headquarters of Make School. So that's
keeping you busy.
Keeping me busy, and there's always various things, but sort of planning for the future, building out. We're trying to build out an intro computer science curriculum that we'll ideally be able to give out to high schools for free.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Everything about Make School is great. I am so excited. Before we go, Ashu, can you just let everyone know how they can apply, how they can learn more, and reach out to your team and follow you guys?
Yeah. So you can go to makeschool.com, and on makeschool.com you can see we have the university replacement program as well as the summer academy. So you can apply to both of those. The application deadline for the summer academy is going to be at the end of this month, so I would definitely apply to that soon within the next week. You can also follow us on Twitter at Make School, or find us on Facebook. And if you have any questions, we're always happy to answer. Just shoot us an email at hello@makeschool.com. And whether you have questions about the Summer Academy or the 2-year program or anything else.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with me today. This was wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time.